We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but we are going in a little bit more detail, and I'm going to show you just how right I was. I have a tendency to be right. But on this subject in particular, I was 100% right. A few weeks back, we talked about independence in the music business and a lot of the streaming outlets like Spotify, Apple Music, Twitch, starting to sign exclusive deals with content creators and musicians as well. It's coming to fruition. We're going to look at the roadmap and some things that are currently happening out in the industry right now. And you can see the future of the music business is changing, but I think it's going to be a positive thing for you and for me. All of that is coming up today on the Steve Freeman Podcast.
You're listening to the Steve Freeman Podcast, the real, raw truth about the pursuit of success in music, business, and life. Here's your host, hit songwriter, multi-platinum selling producer, and serial entrepreneur, Steve Freeman.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Steve Freeman Podcast. So good to have you here. Don't forget, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or iTunes, do me a favor, leave us a 5-star review and a written review. It helps us so much with Apple's algorithm and keeps us in the top 50 podcasts on Apple Podcast. I know I keep asking you guys every week because the thing of it is I know exactly how many of you guys are listening and downloading this podcast so that I see the number of reviews. So there are thousands and thousands of you guys out there that haven't left a review. I would love for you, please take a couple of seconds out of your day and go leave us that review and a 5-star rating. Also, go check out the brand new Steve Freeman Podcast merch. It is absolutely amazing. Matter of fact, I placed an order, and yes, I paid for it. I didn't get it free. I paid for it. But my order is coming in and should be in a couple of days. We've got a ton of cool stuff. Logo t-shirts. We've got the No Bull t-shirts and tank tops. We've got the coffee mugs, the hats. It's all right there for you at the Steve Freeman Podcast merch store, brought to you by my friends at Custom Ink. Go check it out now. You can find it at thestevefreeman.com. Then click on shop and it will redirect you right to where all of the wonderful new merch is found. I also want to tell you, one of the things that I did with this is it was not about making money at all, because I took all of the profit, which may not have been a smart thing. I basically took all the profit out of this for me to increase the quality of the gear that we're selling. So I really don't make anything on it, and that's totally fine. It's not the reason, not the purpose why I wanted to do it. But this is the t-shirts, the hats, they're all extremely expensive and they're all very high quality. So even though when you buy a t-shirt, it's not really expensive, or a hat or whatever, the quality of the shirts and the quality of the hats and the tank tops are the best that you can possibly buy. So there's no profit margin. I'm not making any fucking money on it, but that's okay. If you do buy something, make sure you post a picture on Facebook or Instagram and tag me at the Steve Freeman or hashtag the Steve Freeman Podcast so that I can reshare that back out over my social media. I would greatly appreciate it. A couple of weeks ago, we had an episode where I talked about Joe Rogan and the exclusive deal that he's done with Spotify to take the Joe Rogan podcast over to Spotify at the end of the year, beginning January 2021. That deal's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And at that time, in that episode, we kind of went over and explored what I think is going to happen in the music business. And in all honesty, not even just the music business, but the entertainment business overall. And really, it could even spread and get to the point where it's just how business is done. I think the days of the major label are over. I'll be real honest with you. I think the days of the major film and movie studios are over. You're starting to see a rise and a surgence of independence. And the reason you're seeing that is because a lot of these major companies like Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Amazon, Twitch, they are all starting to go out and find content creators, musicians, and businesses that are not partnered with a larger entity like a major label or a major label studio or a major movie studio. They're going out and they're finding these artists that own their content, and they are doing exclusive partnerships with these content creators, these musicians, and other businesses, other filmmakers. I think that's the way that everything's going to go. Now, as that episode aired a few weeks back, it may have been a while back now, a month or so ago, we have started to see stories come down of this happening, this exact thing happening. There was just a story that came out a few days ago about Logic, the artist Logic. He has signed an exclusive 7-figure streaming partnership with Twitch. Now, I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast is familiar with Twitch. If you're not familiar with Twitch, Twitch is a live streaming platform. And where it started largely and mainly for gaming, for esports and gamers to stream their gameplay out to their fans. It has really, because of the pandemic, it has started to expand. And now there's a lot of musical artists, a lot of songwriters, a lot of producers that are using the Twitch platform to live stream, to grow their audience, to gain influence. And a lot of these are independent artists, and they are developing their own following. They're developing their own fan base that they can then sell to. Of course, you can integrate a tip jar. Your fans or viewers, people that are streaming your broadcast, they can tip you. They can, there's PayPal links. Everything's built into the dashboard. So it makes it very simple to do. And, I've talked to a lot of you about the importance of embracing these different platforms. And I know at times some of you say, well, I'm just not comfortable. I'm not comfortable live streaming. I'm not comfortable doing this or doing that. You're going to have to get comfortable, because nothing about, as technology grows and that barrier between you and your existing or potential fan base, that barrier is starting to erode more and more. It used to be by the year. Now it's more by the minute. You've got to take advantage of that. As an artist or a content creator or a filmmaker, it doesn't matter. It's a business owner. You've got to take advantage of that erosion. And if you are not taking advantage of every single platform and method out there that is at your disposal to connect as much as humanly possible with your fan base, then you are completely in the wrong, and you're heading in the wrong direction. If you're still thinking of the model, I'm going to get signed by a major label or a major publisher, and then they're going to go out and do all this work for me, you're never going to make it, because you are heading in the exact opposite direction of where everybody else is heading. This deal with Logic is 7 figures. So that means it's at least $1 million. And I guarantee you it's a lot more than that. There was a great article about it in Rolling Stone. You can find the link in the show notes. But some of the article I want to let you know, it says Logic has signed an exclusive deal with Twitch to become the company's first musician signing. The video game live streamer announced on Monday the latest milestone in Twitch's growing music presence that has expanded amid the coronavirus pandemic. Without getting into specifics, Logic told The Verge that the new deal is in the 7 figures. Also says music is becoming an increasingly prominent part of the Twitch experience, and it's proven vital for artists as live streaming has taken over the live music ecosystem. Artists looking to play shows for some cash while venues have been shut down have gone to platforms like Twitch and stage it. They've even done, YouTube, Facebook Live, all these other places. Streams on Twitch are more interactive than more passive viewing options, with fans donating in virtual tip jars and interacting more directly with musicians through Twitch's chat feature. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Twitch. Like I said, if you're not, you need to go check it out, twitch.com. There are more and more artists starting to launch themselves using platforms like Twitch, using platforms like TikTok, using Instagram, using Twitter, using all of these different platforms. Just matter of fact, just the other day, I'm not real big into TikTok, so it's not really my thing. But evidently there is a huge creator on TikTok named Addison Rae. Now, my youngest daughter knew exactly who this was. And she's known for the content that she's creating on TikTok. But she has also now signed an exclusive deal with Spotify to do an exclusive podcast with her mom. Are you starting to see the things that I was talking about before starting to come to fruition? This is so important. If you are not on this train, you need to get on board with this train. You've got these different artists and content creators and music like this. Addison Rae, she's not known for podcasting. She's not known for being an on-air personality. She's known for the content she creates on TikTok. But now she has leveraged that fan base and leveraged that influence that she has into a big-time deal for a podcast with Spotify. Logic Millions of dollars. He just signed an exclusive deal with Twitch. He's not known as a streamer, but now he's expanding his platform. He's using the influence and the fan base that he has built to transition them over to where a company like a Twitch sees that as valuable. And it will bring people to the platform, and people will spend more time on the platform. So I guess my question to you is, what exactly are you doing to prepare to put yourself in a situation like that? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, it was Steve, I'm not Logic, or Steve, I'm not Addison Rae. I'm not Joe Rogan. But you can be. And one of the things I've never understood, really, is some of the artists that I've talked to have such pie-in-the-sky dreams. Nobody has the issue of having the dream of, all right, I'm from bumfucked Egypt, but I'm going to leave my hometown. I'm going to go to Nashville. I'm going to get a major publishing deal. I'm going to write hit songs, and then I'm going to sign a record deal as an artist, and I'm going to become successful. And I honestly see myself in the next 5 years playing stadiums. Now, nobody has an issue with that dream whatsoever. You all somehow convince yourself that that is possible. How you do that, I have no idea. But those of you that are being honest with yourself, I've talked to too many artists that honestly believe. I cannot tell you the number of times I have sat down with artists in an initial meeting and I asked them, where do you see yourself in 7 years? The number of times they have looked back at me and said, playing stadiums. I can't count on all fingers, all toes. I can't even count the number of times that has happened on all of your fingers and all of your toes. So nobody has a problem with that dream. That dream, that expectation, that goal is perfectly obtainable in your minds. But what I don't understand is that if that to you is obtainable, and that to you is a realistic goal and a realistic dream, why do I always get such feedback or pushback and argument when I say things like, there's nothing that says you can't be the next Joe Rogan. There's nothing that says you can't be the next Drake, which we're going to talk about in just a second. There's nothing that says you can't be the next Addison Rae or the next Logic that is signing a major multi-million-dollar deal with Twitch. That's what I never understand. I don't get the difference. You think that you can come to town and you can accomplish all these wonderful dreams and aspirations that you have. But when I talk about doing things on your own and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and putting in the persistence, consistency, and willingness to sacrifice, to do things like what these other people are. Addison Rae was nobody 2 years ago. And look where she is today. I can give you examples on YouTube of people that didn't even have a YouTube channel a year ago and are making $25,000, $30,000 a month right now on their YouTube channel. For whatever reason, those of you that have the dream of coming, getting a publishing deal, writing hit songs, getting a record deal, and then going out on tour and playing stadiums, that is completely attainable. But then when I talk about this other side, that you could do this, you all look at me like I'm fucking crazy. The only thing I can come back to is that when you have this dream over here of getting the publishing deal and of going out on tour and having hit records and writing hit songs, all of that is predicated on somebody else doing all the work. Does that to you make it seem more attainable? Are you one of these people that thinks, oh, I have the talent, somebody's going to recognize that talent, and then they're going to do all the hard work? Are you the ones that think that the amount that when I talk about sacrifice, the sacrifice was you leaving the comfort of your hometown and moving to Nashville? Maybe having to eat ramen noodles for a little while? Because to me, the only difference in what we're talking about is that this thing over here requires all of the pressure to be on you. If it is to be, it's up to me. How many times have I said that? That's the only difference between those two dreams, those two realities, if you will, is that over here, you've got to do all the work and you're responsible for the journey. Over here, somebody else or a team or a group of people is responsible, which tells me one of the two things. If you believe in that dream, to me, you're lazy. The world is too open. The barriers are eroding and being torn down by the minute every day. So for somebody that has this dream over here of being this megastar and playing stadiums, That should be very exciting to you to know that all of this is possible without having to rely on somebody else doing something for you in order for that to happen. But for whatever reason, there's a gap there and there's a leap there that those of you that believe in this dream don't see the reality and possibility of this dream. And like I said, the only difference is that somebody on this other dream, this other side, is doing all the work. And maybe you're just lazy and don't want to put in that much work. And if that's the case, then you can't look at people like Drake or look at people like Logic or look at people like Joe Rogan or Howard Stern or all these other people that have done exclusive deals. Taylor Swift, she did an exclusive deal with Apple once to have an album of hers exclusive for a certain amount of time. If you can't look at that and be excited by that and know that you are driven enough by your passion to bring that to fruition, then you don't need to be doing this. If you want somebody else to do it for you, you need to stay at home. That is the best course of action for you. Get a job at Chick-fil-A. I hear the training's very good. Yeah, I know that's going to upset a lot of people. Steve's telling me not to follow my dreams. No, Steve's telling you to get off your fucking ass and do the heavy lifting. And that's what most artists don't want to hear. Because you've got all the passion for the creativity. You just have no passion whatsoever for the journey. You are not ready, packed, and in your GPS, when you look at the fact that it's 700 miles instead of 130, you get frustrated. But you've got to change your mindset because this is where the industry is going. I told you this months ago, and we're starting to see it more and more and more and more. Independent is the future of the music business. It just is. Gone are the days of needing a major label. Like I said earlier, again, those barriers are torn down. Take advantage of that. I want to talk with you about Drake for a second. I told you we were going to get into this. There was a panel. This was a great article in Variety by Shirley Zhu. And I will put the link to this article in the show notes. But I think you should check it out. The title of the article is "If Drake Goes Independent, the Music Business is Done," says United Masters Steve Stout. There was a panel going on at a virtual summit a couple of weeks ago. And the whole idea of this, matter of fact, the title of the summit was Independence, a conversation with Steve Stout and Russ. And it was a 2-day kind of select con where they talked about pros and cons of being an independent or major label still viable or is getting a major label. Anyway, they were talking about all this stuff. And during this panel, Russ laid down the blueprint of what might transpire if Drake went independent. Now, Drake is currently signed to Cash Money, which is an imprint of Universal Music and owned by Republic Records. But if Drake went independent, which he's going to be able to do very, very soon, he'll be out of his deal. If he went completely independent, now this is what Russ said. I'm going to quote him directly. He said, quote, you think of Drake right now completely independent. If Drake posts a picture on the gram of his new album, link in bio, just a fucking link in his bio, quote, new album out now, and he was fully independent, Drake will make $10 million a week for 60 weeks. Let that sink in. And even Steve Stout said, I said before, this is quoting him, I said before, Drake is about to come out in the next 6 months. Drake is about to get the biggest bag in the history of the music business by far. Both A and B, they don't want that to happen. That's the record label and distribution. Because the day that happens, they might as well close the business down. And Stout even went on to say, if Drake goes independent, the music business is over. If Drake goes independent, the music business is done. Russ did the math. Now, I want you to follow me on the math here, because this is interesting. This is what the power of going independent and signing directly with these distribution platforms like 1RPM. We had Ken Matson on not long ago. Drake uploads God's Plan. This is a theory, so follow the theory and follow the math. Drake uploads God's Plan on a digital distributor. So whatever money that is, less than $10, if you, depending on the distribution outlet you want to use. And he pays for the beat that could be $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And then he has to get it mixed, let's say 4 tracks. So all in, he's at $50,000 tops. Now, listen, these are guys talking about the urban hip hop and R&B world. Never, ever should it ever cost $50,000 to have a track done. Okay, ever under any circumstances. But if you're Drake, what difference does it make? Now, he says that song, you owning it forever and getting paid weekly on it, you're making $1 million a week off of that song. If Drake goes independent, this whole industry gets turned upside down. That's why I'm independent, putting out music independently. Those are some powerful numbers. Now, again, I'm not implying that you have to be, Steve, I'm not Drake. I understand that. But with the platforms that are available and the pedestals that you are allowed to put yourself on now through something we talked about a couple of weeks ago or a week ago on branding, on brand awareness and building your brand, engaging your fan base, leading to gaining influence and then driving your customers to action. You all have this at your disposal. And I do want to hit on this really quickly. I think that a lot of you out there are still focused on the creation. I think many of you listening or watching this are still thinking that, well, I don't have the song that's going to lead to all that. I don't know how many times I have to say the song doesn't matter. Because unless you have a fan base to put that song out to, the song doesn't matter. Nobody's going to hear it. So it doesn't matter how good the song is or how bad the song is. Now, trust me, I've said it before. As a songwriter and music producer, it kills me to say that. Because I've always thought about the song first. I've thought about the music first, or I did for a very long time. 5, 6, 7 years ago, I completely changed my mind about that because I'm human. And I have 2 hands and I can turn on my radio and I can tell and I can see that if the music that I'm hearing coming through the speakers in my Jeep, in my beautiful Gladiator that I absolutely love, if I can hear the shitty music that is being played on radio coming through my speakers, then obviously the music doesn't matter to the powers that be. The companies that are spending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to push this music out, to pay consultants to get it played on radio, to paying radio program directors, payola, to get the music out there and get it played. If the music doesn't matter to those companies, why the fuck should it matter to me? Because it's not about the music. How many times have I said that? It is not about the music. You have got to change your thinking. Stop thinking that, well, I'll do all that when I've got the product. I'll do all that when I've got the right song or the right collection of songs. The music doesn't matter. The product doesn't matter. Because if the brand isn't right, remember we talked about that. If the brand isn't right, the product is valueless. There's no value to that product. So what are you doing to create your brand? If you're adequately doing what we've been talking about over the podcast over the last year and a half, and you are working on the branding, you are doing exactly what you should be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis to grow your brand. There is nothing saying that you can't put yourself in a position like Drake or like Addison Rae or like Howard Stern when he signed his $500 million exclusive deal with SiriusXM. There's nothing that says you can't be Joe Rogan and develop a piece of content that Spotify will pay hundreds of millions of dollars for. It's happening all around you. It's happening every day. What I don't understand is why people don't look in the mirror and go, why can't that be me? And when you realize that the answer to that question is that it can be, why so many of you are so hesitant to do and take the steps necessary to actually do it? And again, I don't know if it goes back to those 2 separate dreams, those 2 separate goals. And over here, the ease of and the less pressure that you feel on yourself to try to just create something good enough that a publishing company will sign me, and then they'll go out and get me cuts. And then that'll raise my profile. And then people will see, oh, that's me singing the demos, and the labels will hear that because I've gotten cuts, and then they'll want to sign me to a record. Do you realize when you have that dream that you are counting on up to 100 people doing their job in order for you to realize your goal? And I've talked many, many, many times about the dangers of placing your success or failure in the hands of somebody else. When you look in that mirror and you say, why can't that be me? It can be you, but you're going to have to do the work. You're going to I still artist every day. I get messages. Steve, well, I'm doing this, but I'm not getting the results. And then I will go to their profile and I'll go, okay, well, you posted one time in the last 3 days. I've told you need to be posting between 5 and 15 times a day between your stories and your feed. You're telling me that what I'm telling you to do isn't working, but you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. Well, I don't know what to post. We've talked about all this in the past. You got to get with it. You got to get with the program. You cannot sit on the sidelines and watch the evolution that the business is in the middle of and not get excited about that, but then at the same time, not use that as fuel to do the things you should be doing in your career to put you in the same position that these people are in. Twitch is out there and it's free for you to use. YouTube is out there and it's free for you to use. Instagram is out there and it's free for you to use. Facebook, free to use. All of these different tools to grow your brand, to gain influence, to get people to an action point. Stop focusing on the music. Stop focusing on the creation and start realizing that you are the brand. Your job right now is to sell you, not the products. We talked about that in the branding episode last week. You are the product. You are the brand. When people buy you, they will buy the products of your brand. But you have to establish that trust. You have to establish that connection. And most importantly, you have to provide people with value. You don't provide people with value by selling them something. I'm telling you, there's never been a more exciting time in the history of the entertainment business to be in the entertainment business. You know, back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, this dream we were talking about, that was the only way. That was it. Come to town, hopefully get a publishing deal, hopefully get a record deal. That was your only way to break through. Now it's not even the preferred way to break through. You have so many options over here you should be taking advantage of. Listen to the math. You don't even have to be Drake. You can be 0.01% of Drake as he pulls in $60 million a month. If you are 0.01% as big as Drake, you're still making more money per week than you probably anybody you know has made in their lifetime. Now, you can sit back and you could say, Steve, that sounds like pie in the sky. Yeah, but you know what? You want to know why I'm successful? Because I fucking think big and you don't. Start thinking big. It amazes me. Well, it really shocks me and amazes me when I talk to some people that on a scale from like 1 to 10, let's say 1 to 10, most people have a goal and an expectation that reaches about a 5 or 6 because there's protection in that. We don't want to set our goals too high because we don't want to get depressed and disappointed and down on ourselves when we don't reach that 9 or 10. So most people, even at the height of their expectations and the height of their goals between 1 and 10, they set those somewhere between 5 and 6. The difference between me and those people are that mine's a fucking 10 every single time. And if I'm doing this and I don't reach a 10, then I change what I'm doing. And guess what? The goal for that is 10 again. I don't set my goals at 5. I don't set my goals at 6. I set them at 10. The other difference between me and a lot of people is that I don't feel if I don't hit that 10, I don't look at myself as a failure. I look at myself that I did something wrong and I need to tweak what it is that I'm doing. And I need to listen to my audience more. I need to use my influence better and I need to provide more value to get my 8 or 9 to a 10. There is nothing out there that says you can accomplish the same thing as these people did. And we're going to start seeing more. Every single week, there's going to be something coming out about Apple has signed an exclusive deal with this artist. Twitch has signed an exclusive deal with this songwriter or this artist on their platform. Same thing's going to happen with YouTube and with Amazon and with HBO Max and with Disney Plus. It's going to happen with all of them. And exactly what I said is going to happen that I said several weeks ago, months ago probably now. The major labels will no longer go by the names of Universal and Warner Brothers and Sony. They will go by the names YouTube, Google, Amazon, Twitch, and Apple. And those platforms are open to anyone. Matter of fact, they would prefer to work with an independent artist that is unencumbered, that is on the rise, on the come up. They're looking for them. They're out there actually searching and looking for people who are doing what I'm talking about you should be doing. So get in the mix. Get on their radar. Get in the conversation. It's a wide open world right now. It's almost like the Old West and the Gold Rush. But you're going to have to get your pickaxe. You're going to have to get the tools. You're going to have to get your, sloughs? And you're going to have to go out there and you're going to have to mine for it. And you can't have the expectation of getting the gold without doing the mining. So take that to heart and do your part. The world's out there. All the success in the world is at your fingertips. You just have to do the heavy lifting to get it. And if you're not willing to do that, then you need to go do something else and stop clogging up space and muddying the water for those people that are trying to do what it is they want to do and that are willing to put in the persistence, consistency, and sacrifice, and that are willing to do their own mining. Get out of their way. Guys, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast. As always, don't forget, if you're on Apple Podcast, iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and please leave a written review. That helps us tremendously. All the links to the articles we talked about today and other things you can find right there in the show notes. Go to thestevefreeman.com, click on show notes. It's right there. Plus links to our sponsors, Performance Inspired Nutrition, and the Artist Development Academy at artistdevelopmentacademy.com. Guys, don't forget, if you're not following me on social media, it's at the Steve Freeman across all social media platforms. And I will see you in the next episode. Until then, keep being creative, keep pressing the boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with being independent.
Thanks for joining us for the Steve Freeman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow Steve on social media at the Steve Freeman.